Inshallah, everyone is doing well. Bismillah, alhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalam ala rasulillah. Dear Muhammad, did you have a chance to listen to the lesson about the ablution, the series Learn with Omar? I think it was sent today in the group. It's about performing wudu, ablution.
Oh, I didn't know. I listened it after. I didn't know.
Inshallah, you can listen to it afterwards, and inshallah, today we will talk about that as well.
Okay.
Okay. Inshallah ta'ala, we will continue from where we stopped yesterday. Yesterday, we mentioned among the obligations upon the guardian of the child, there is something called a personal obligation, and there is something called a communal obligation. I remind you, dear brothers and sisters, to have a sincere intention in your heart when attending the lesson, seeking reward from Allah Ta'ala. There's something called a personal obligation, fard ayn, and there's something called a communal obligation, fard kifaya. A personal obligation, it means it is an obligation upon the accountable person, him or herself, to do. For example, the accountable person is obligated to perform the prayer. He has to do it himself. Okay, he does not tell somebody else to pray it on his behalf. No, the accountable person has to do it himself. So these 5 obligatory prayers are an example of a personal obligation. The accountable person has to perform it himself. As for the communal obligation, if some Muslims in an area perform that, then the others are not sinful for leaving it out. An example of a communal obligation is the funeral prayer. You know, when a Muslim dies, the Muslims perform what is referred to as the funeral prayer for that person who died. If some of them in that area perform it, then the others who do not are not sinful, because this is a communal obligation. It means not every accountable Muslim in this area has to perform it. No, if some do it, then the others are not sinful for leaving it out. Yesterday we said what is among the obligations upon the guardian who is a guardian of the child. Now we're going to say that the accountable Muslim is obligated as a communal obligation to order his family members to perform the prayer. For example, the husband orders his wife, if she is not performing the prayer, he orders her to perform the prayer. He orders his family members with prayer, and other people as well who are not praying, he orders them as well. This is a communal obligation. So if other people are doing it, then, they're already doing that. Now, when we order others with performing the obligation, when ordering them, for example, with performing the prayer, you know that our beloved Prophet, alayhi salatu wassalam, he had the best manners. And many Muslims in different parts of the world, they embraced Islam when Muslim traders traveled to various countries. Those who were kuffar, non-believers, they embraced Islam because they saw the manners of the Muslims. So when ordering others with performing the obligations, be it performing the prayer or fasting, any other obligation, one uses wisdom. People differ. Some people, when you order them in kindness, you talk to them, you explain to them, they listen. And some people, if you show them a very strong order, you tell them pray, they might not. They might think, because you're ordering me in such a way, they might say, I will not pray. So you need to see, who is this person I want to order? Maybe if they accept and follow by me being lenient with them and telling them, performing the obligatory prayers is an obligation. If you leave it out, it is an enormous sin. So performing it is really what is good for you. It doesn't take much time from you to perform it. If you talk to them in this manner, some people will listen. So when you're ordering others with performing the prayer, use wisdom and leniency when you think this is what will work, okay? But of course, you also want to show firmness that this is something that is very important, the matter of the prayer. Now, if a person knows that the 5 obligatory prayers are an obligation, he knows that Muslims believe that these are obligations. Yet, despite that, he denounces their obligation. In this case, he commits apostasy. He becomes a non-Muslim. When he knows that they are obligatory, but he says, no, they are not, and he does not pray. In this case, he is not praying and he is claiming that they are not obligatory, despite him knowing that they are. So in this case, he is belying the religion. He becomes a non-Muslim by that. As to the person who knows that they are obligatory, and he does not contradict that. He says, yes, they are an obligation, but he does not perform them out of laziness. And if he is accountable, what did we say is the judgment of this person? He is committing an enormous sin when he is not performing the obligatory prayers without an excuse. And he's accountable, so he is committing an enormous sin by that. But he is not performing them out of laziness, not out of denouncing their obligation. No, he is saying that they are obligatory, but out of laziness, he is not performing them. This person is Muslim. The judgment of this person is that he is a Muslim. But if he's accountable and he is not performing them without having an excuse for that, then he is committing an enormous sin. Now, we mentioned that nowadays we do not have a caliph, the ruler. But had there been a caliph, he would order this person who is not praying out of laziness, okay? He would order this person to perform the prayer. If he does not perform the prayer, then he will have this person killed after first ordering him with prayer. And you can imagine then what a person knows that this is the ruling and the caliph would have him killed. Wouldn't this person usually then get up and pray? I think many would then get up and pray. But if there was a ruler, this is the job of the ruler. But today we do not have a caliph, okay? So it is not for us to do, okay? We do not do that. We order this person, we advise this person with prayer. But the judgment of this person who is not praying out of laziness, and if there was a caliph and he orders him with prayer and he still does not, and we said the caliph would have him killed, the judgment of this person is still that he is Muslim, because he is not denouncing the obligation of the prayer. No, he believes that it is an obligation. He is just not performing it out of laziness. So if the caliph kills him, he is still judged as a Muslim. So after having him killed, he is still washed, he is still shrouded, he is still prayed for, and he is buried in the Muslim cemetery. Subhanallah. And we said a lot of these rules in Islam, if they were applied, many of the sins that we are seeing being committed nowadays, I think they would be a lot less. Nevertheless, nowadays we do not have a caliph, okay? Now, inshallah ta'ala, we will proceed by talking about wudu, which is referred to in English as ablution. Remember, we said that there are integrals and there are conditions. And among the conditions of prayer is having ablution wudu. So a condition is not part of the deed itself, but without it, the deed would not be valid. So when one wants to perform the prayer, a condition for the prayer to be valid is to have wudu first. Therefore, wudu is a condition for the validity of the prayer. Inshallah, now we will be talking about performing wudu ablution. Wudu has integrals, meaning these integrals are part of wudu. They have to be done for wudu to be valid. Okay, because they're integrals, they're part of the act of worship. They're part of the deed, and without it, the deed would not be valid. Ablution would not be valid. So, wudu, ablution, has integrals, and it has recommended sunnah matters. The integrals, as I just said, they have to be done for the wudu to be valid. Whereas the recommended matters, these sunnah matters, they are good to do. The person who does them, inshallah, he will be rewarded. But if a person leaves them out and does not do them when performing wudu, but he just performs the integrals, the wudu is valid, okay? If the person just performs the integrals of wudu and leaves out the sunnah, the recommended matters, the wudu is valid. Of course, I advise you to do the recommended sunnah matters as well, because there's reward in that. But now we will just be talking about the integrals. Inshallah, another time we will talk about the recommended sunnah matters to do when performing wudu. But now I will just be mentioning the integrals, meaning these are the parts that the person has to do when performing ablution for the ablution to be valid. And this is important to learn because some people might be doing a sunnah and leaving out an integral. In this case, the deed would not be valid because the integral, it has to be done for the deed to be valid. So one should learn what these integrals are to make sure that the person is performing them. So the integrals of wudu, according to Imam al-Shafi'i radiyallahu anh, are 6 matters, okay? 6 obligations that one has to do for the wudu to be valid. The first of these is the intention. And as we have said before, the place of the intention is in the heart. So the person does not have to say anything with his tongue. He can, if he wants to, he can say the intention with his tongue, sure. But its place is in the heart. So one should establish the intention in one's heart. What would he intend, for example? He would intend, for example, that he is performing wudu. This is a valid intention. Okay, so when would he have the intention? He would establish the intention when the water first touches his face, okay? So the first integral of wudu is then having the intention. The place of the intention is in the heart. So one would intend, for example, that one is performing wudu, and one would have this intention in the heart when the water is touching the face. Now, this brings us to the second integral, which is to wash the whole face. Okay, the second integral is to wash the whole face from the normal hairline to the chin, okay, and from one ear to the other. So everything that is included in the face has to be washed. In regards to the man who has a thick beard, okay, here he washes, when washing his face, he washes the outer part of his beard, but it would be valid for him even if the water does not go all the way in, when his beard is thick. As for if his beard is not thick, then he has to wash the outside of his beard and the inside as well. Okay, so he washes the outside of his beard and makes sure that the water reaches his skin as well, the inner part of his beard as well. Now, how do we know, or how does this person know whether his beard is thick or not? The scholar said, from the normal distance where you had a conversation with this person, can you see the skin underneath his beard? If the answer is no, then he has a thick beard. And if the answer is yes, you can see the skin underneath his beard, then his beard is not thick. And then when he makes wudu, when he washes his face, he makes sure that he washes the outer part of his beard and inside as well. Okay, so he makes sure also that water reaches the inside of his beard as well. So then the person washes his face, and when the water first touches the face, he has the intention in his heart. So for example, if a person washed, let's say, for example, the top part of his face, and then he had the intention in his heart, and then he continued, in this case, he has to rewash that part that he washed but did not have the intention when he washed it. Okay, because he washed that part and he had not yet established the intention in the heart. So when the water, we said, touches the face, the person has the intention, and then one washes the whole face. The intention is something that is done in the heart. You would intend in your heart, for example, that you are performing wudu. Okay? That is in your heart. When the water touches your face, you have the intention, for example, that you're performing wudu. This is a valid intention. All right. So if the person washed part of the face without the intention and then remembered the intention, the part that was not washed will have to be rewashed after having established the intention. Okay, so the second integral is then to wash the whole face. All right, from the normal hairline to the chin and from one ear to the other. The third integral is to wash the hands, forearms, including the elbow. Okay, this is the elbow. So the third integral is to wash the hands, forearms, including the elbow. And we need to be cautious here because sometimes you might see people when they are wearing long sleeves, in winter, and they lift them up and they want to make ablution. Sometimes you see that the sleeve, when it's lifted up, it's not going all the way. So they really need to lift up that sleeve more for them to wash the elbow. Okay, so they wash the forearms and including the elbows. The hands, forearms, including the elbows. And one has to be careful. If I have anything on my hand that prevents the water from reaching the part that is to be washed, I should remove it first. Okay, those of you who are college students or school students, sometimes we use, I don't know what you call it, but we used to call it whiteout. Okay, some people maybe call it in Lebanon Tipex, I don't know, but this liquid whiteout, this puts a layer. If it comes on your skin, you usually use this to cover something that you have written. You made a mistake and you want to cover that mistake. But if it comes on the skin, it puts a layer. And if it's on the skin, it prevents the water from reaching then the skin. And you need to wash the skin. So this has to be removed. Okay, so one needs to remove that part of this ink that makes a layer to make sure that it's gone when one wants to wash the hands. All right. As for example, regular pen, if it comes on your hand, regular pen that you're using, this does not make a layer. okay? So it does not prevent the water from reaching your skin. Females who use nail polish, they need to remove it because the nail polish prevents the water from reaching the nail, and the nails need to be washed. So if the female has nail polish on her fingers, she needs to remove the nail polish first before she makes wudu, okay? And I do not encourage you to use nail polish whatsoever. But in case the female has it on her hand, on her fingers, she needs to remove it before she makes wudu because the nail polish prevents the water from reaching the nails, okay? It makes a layer. So we said then the third integral is to wash the hands, forearms, including the elbows. I will answer that at the end of the lesson, inshallah. The fourth integral, now notice when I mentioned the washing the face, we said washing. When I mentioned the hands, we said washing. This means water needs to flow. Okay, for example, if I put water in my hand and I pour it to wash my forearms, the water flows. It needs to flow. The fourth integral is wet wiping the head or part of it, even if it is one hair, but it is within the boundary of the head. Here, wet wiping is enough. I don't have to wash, but wet wiping is enough. For example, if I put my hand underneath the water, my hand becomes wet. If I do that, that would be sufficient. I'm wet wiping my head or part of it, okay? Even if it is one hair, but within the boundary of the head. For example, if a female has long hair and her hair reaches, let's say, her shoulders, okay? If she takes this part of her hair that is here and wet wipes this part, that would not be sufficient. Why not? Because this part that she took here is not part of the head anymore. It's extended down, it reached outside the boundary of the head. It is outside the boundary of the head. So wet wiping this part of her hair would not be sufficient. All right? So when wet wiping then the head or part of it, one makes sure that one is wet wiping the part that is within the boundary of the head. Okay? If a person does not have hair, still one wet wipes the head or part of it. All right? So that was then the fourth integral. The fifth integral is to wash, here again, wash the feet, including the ankles. The ankles are these two bones that protrude on the foot, these two bones. So these are the ankles. They have to be washed as well, all right? So the fifth integral is to wash the feet, including the ankles. So they have to be washed as well. All right, and of course, one makes sure that the water is reaching between the toes. You know, some people, maybe their toes are close to each other. So they make sure, the person makes sure that water is going in between. That water is going in between one's toes, all right? And whatever one has, let's say cracks on the hands or on the feet, one makes sure also that the water is reaching the part to be washed. So the fifth integral is then to wash the feet, including the ankles. What is now the sixth integral? The sixth and the last integral of ablution is to do these integrals that I just mentioned in order. That is to do them in this order. So the sixth integral is then to perform these integrals in order, in the order that we just mentioned. So if a person washes the hands before washing the face, this is not in order anymore. Okay, the face needs to be washed first before the hands. All right, if a person, for example, wet wipes the head before washing the hands, that would not be valid because they need to follow this order. Because the 6th integral is to follow this order. One has to do these integrals in this order that we mentioned. As to the sister who said asked about washing the hands before the face. Dear, it is recommended, sunnah, to start by washing the hands. This is the sunnah. But today I told you we are only talking about the integrals. So if the person started by performing the sunnah and washed the hands, but then they're washing the face, and then they are washing the hands again with the forearms, including the elbows, okay? So I think you meant by that the sunnah wash before the face. In that case, if the person wants to do this sunnah to wash the hands first, but then still one has to have the intention when washing the face, and after washing the face, one is still going to wash the hands again, because this is now the integral, washing the hands, forearms, including the elbows after washing the face, okay? I hope that is clear, dear. Okay, so the person wants to make sure that his wudu is valid. So he makes sure that the water reaches the parts that have to be washed. And it is better to wash a little bit more than the boundary of the face. This is among the recommended matters, okay? Also, when you wash, including your elbows, to wash a little bit more, and when washing the feet, to wash a little bit more than the ankles. But that, inshallah, we will talk about when we talk about the recommendations of ablution. As to the 6 integrals that we mentioned, they have to be satisfied in order for one's wudu to be valid. Now, in regards to the question of nail polish, subhanallah, many people wear nail polish, but we need to see, what does the Islamic rule say? What is the Islamic judgment? Because, you know, just because something is done by many people does not necessarily mean that it is halal to do. You know, many people nowadays do a lot of sins, a lot. Does that mean that it is okay for us to do? No, for sure not. So what did the scholars say? The scholars said, if something is started by non-Muslims and is specific to them, all right? Not just started by them, but is specific to non-Muslims in their behavior, then Muslims are not to imitate them, okay? You know, there are matters that are specific to the kuffar. They do them. That was started by them, and they do them, okay? For example, their celebrations, we don't celebrate their celebrations. And there are other things as well, not just that, other things as well that are specific to them, such as nail polish. Nail polish is something that was started by the non-Muslims and is specific to them. So the Muslim female is not to imitate them by that, is not to follow them by that. And don't be taken by what they call, you know, social media trends. And every now and then they come up with more weird things and weird, you know, when you think that you have seen so many weird things, they come up with something that is more weird, even in what pertains to nail polish. Subhanallah. So no, we are as Muslims to follow really the manners of the pious people. Even if nowadays the ones who are following the pious are low in number, but still we should do what is better, what is good. So we are to imitate the pious people. We are to imitate the pious ones in our behavior, in our manners, and not to imitate the non-believers, the kuffar, okay? So when something is specific to them, we are not to imitate them. And Allah Ta'ala knows best. My dear sister, whoever asked the last question regarding dyeing the hair, you know, the scholars gave details in such matters. Okay, there are details that pertain to as to whether the female is married or not married, etc. So inshallah ta'ala, one day we will talk about such issues, because I know they're important for many females. inshallah, one day we will set a time for those. Let us say together, Tahleel, Lillah, La ilaha illallah, La ilaha illallah, La ilaha illallah, Allahumma salli ala Sayyidina Muhammad وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم رب اغفر لي وللمؤمنين والمؤمنات رب اغفر لي وللمؤمنين والمؤمنات رب اغفر لي وللمؤمنين والمؤمنات. I kindly urge you to forward these lessons to many people. You know, the lesson that we had yesterday about the obligations of the guardian, they're very important for many parents to listen to. So forward them to others and remember the sincere intention in your heart when doing that. So inshallah ta'ala, you will be rewarded as well when you forward that to someone else to help them learn about the rules of the religion. Okay, may Allah Ta'ala bless you. Assalamu alaikum.